All right, I just want to talk about the approach that I've been using with cops and how I want to change that because the second trial now, preparing for my second trial, especially with the help of AI, has helped give me a different perspective on how to deal with cops. All right, it's not just a matter of asking what the crime is. You don't ask what's the crime. It doesn't seem like that's their specialty. They don't care about what the crime is. Though they gotta look something up, but and then attach it to me in some way. Trespassing, loitering, resisting arrest, or obstruction. But that's not exactly what you can ask them about at trial. And I gotta focus on what's important to the fact finders at trial rather than trying to figure out what the crime is. It's helpful to know what crime uh, that they want to charge me is, but to ask about that particular crime, it's like those questions just get tossed out by objections. Hmm. So I I learn what the crime is that they want to charge me with, and then I want to learn about the cops' training and that's involved with it. Because you don't ask the uh, what the crime is exactly. You don't ask the cops to define the crime because that's legal. That's legal interpretation, and that's objectionable in court. Legal interpretation is up to the judge, and it almost sounds like the jury, but the only two trials now that I've had have been with a judge, and they've been both the fact finder and the law finder. So the objections that I experience during my trial, in a lot of ways, are legal matters, and those types of issues and questions should have been solved before the trial would have begun if there was actual people there, 6 or 12 people to serve as the jury rather than the judge. The judge can handle those questions with that are legal conclusions by simply sustaining objections from the prosecution. But the prosecutor will still ask questions about legal conclusions as well. At the trial in West Milwaukee over Zoom, my prosecutor asked the police chief if he could have cited me a criminal charge. And I was like, objection, legal conclusion. And the judge sustained that. One of the few objections I had sustained. And I could have objected more after looking at the transcripts, not realizing what I could object to exactly. I know I'm learning more and more what I can object to. I'm learning more and more what kind of questions I need to be asking these cops on the street. Okay? And it's the focus of training and their actions. Okay? What are you trained on? What actions do you take? They're trained to look for certain things, and sometimes that involves asking questions. But when they ask questions, that involves me assisting them in their observations and actions. And that all comes from training. If I ask them about a court case, like even Terry v. Ohio, that's a legal conclusion, and you can't do that. You got to ask about the training that's been developed from that court case. You ask about the police policy that's involved from the court case, that's involved from the Wisconsin statutes. The Wisconsin statutes can implement the court case into their law, into their statutes, but you don't ask about statutes, you don't ask about court cases. Those are questions that are off limits. Okay, and I had ChatGPT forming questions related to court cases, and that's a mistake. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. You don't mention a single court case in your questioning, in your cross-examinations. You don't mention a single court case. It'll be objected to, and it's an easy objection to sustain. You don't ask even the statutes. You don't ask if they know what the statute is. That's also an objectionable issue. All right, that's an objectionable question. And ChatGPT will still ask those questions. So ChatGPT is not on its game. But, I mean, prosecutors still make those mistakes too, asking for legal conclusions. All right, you gotta refine your questions. So I'm asking questions only about the training, but the problem is now these past two, Wisconsin and Louisiana, have both denied me access to the police policies, and that really corrupts my questions. Because if I'm going to focus on the cops' training and experience, part of their training, and that is training. I mean, you got the law enforcement academy as early training, but the continuous training, I want to verify what they're being trained on, and by having the police policies withheld from me, that hurts my questions a lot. I mean, I'm still trying to like wrap my head around how to ask questions about police policies in general. Like, pretty much, they're all a lot of the same policies, but it's like, I ask a question, the cop says this, and then I'm like, aha, the policy says this, it says different. It's a lot easier to do that, to say that the policy says something different than what the cop is telling me, as opposed to their police report. The cop is more likely to follow their police reports than their police policies. It just seems to make sense if you think about it. I mean, they're following their own logic, their own way of thinking. They're writing what they think on their report. They review that, and it's easy for them to align. And then they can just look at their report again to refresh their memory right on the stand, and be like, oh yeah, I guess I didn't say that, or I guess it doesn't say that, and that's it. So it's not like you're catching them in an aha moment. There's no catching a cop in a aha moment, asking them about a trial case, I don't know, David versus Alaska, or whatever. There's no catching them. Oh, but in this case, it says that, blah, blah, blah. Those are legal arguments that you make in your motions before the trial. And if the judge rejects it, then that's it. You got to stick with the training. And within the training, observations and actions. Okay? So where's their training coming from? You can't say that they're trained off of court cases. They're not. I mean, cops aren't trained off court cases. They could be aware of it, but somebody sits down and figures out how to make training from the latest ruling, like, the Miranda case, the Terry v. Ohio. Suddenly, after those court cases were settled, new training came out, and it's an interpretation from the trainer, and that's written in the police policies and however else they're trained with refresher courses, and it's like I need more information on the training. All right, how standardized is the training? It's constantly changing. I saw the difference in the training manuals between two officers in Wisconsin. The DOJ oversees the training for the officers in Wisconsin. The DOJ does not oversee the training for the officers in Louisiana. And if you do ask the training, the supervisors for information about their training, they don't answer. So you don't learn anything about training for the cops in Louisiana. You gotta become a cop yourself in Louisiana, and then you could get the inside information. If you don't have that, if you don't have a connection, a cop who's willing to share what they've been training on, that you can then refer to, then you got nothing, apparently, especially with questions at your trial, because you're limited. And it's amazing to me, with the training. I mean, I guess I would maybe want to form questions, since if I'm going to get denied access to the police policies, and that's a big part of big source of material for questions. I would ask, what kind of training would come out of this court case? I would ask ChatGPT that. What kind of training for police would come out of certain cases? There's been some cases that ChatGPT has mentioned that I asked. I mean, foolish me. I'm learning. This was trial number 2 in Wisconsin. I asked about specific court cases. And now I got to go through again with ChatGPT. I got to go through those questions I have. And where it mentions court cases, I should be asking instead from ChatGPT, what kind of training would develop in the police academies for police from these court cases, from these statutes? What kind of training, if you were a police trainer, what kind of training would you develop from this Wisconsin statute? What kind of training would you develop from this court case this recent court case? That's what I would want to ask. I don't know if the cop would have been trained in it. And that's the thing. I got to ask ChatGPT or any other of the latest models, what would be reasonable training that would come out of it, come out of these decisions for cops. And, if it's not implemented, why not? But then that would be objected to, speculative. And it's amazing, because the cop could be badly trained. See, the thing is it comes down to me trying to prove that the cop is not following his training, or that the training is so bad that, even though they're following it, it's not really fair to the Constitution, to our constitutional rights. And those are arguments to make, but to get the direct information from these police is just incredible. There's observations and actions. So I want to ask on the street. I want to establish what the cop's observing. Okay, you see me here. It's late at night. We're making observations. Let's make some more observations. Oh, you say that there's crime in the area. Are you observing crime right now? Okay. You say, okay, in your experience, have you observed crime, or where have you seen this? Where have you gotten these observations? Do you develop them? Because those are brought out so much, the past crimes. So I want to get that. I want to keep it simple. I don't care about what crime they want to accuse me of. I want to focus on their observations. And how are you documenting these observations? A lot of times they don't even turn on their body camera. So how are we documenting this? What have you observed in the past? All right. And then what actions do you want to take? And then then let's get into your training. What experience do you have? How many years on the force? Where did you go for your academy? Is and I'm just out of curiosity, is your police policies publicly accessible? Could you provide me your police policies? It's like those are questions I want to ask. But I mean, I can build on court cases, but just don't ask court cases directly. It makes sense to me a little bit. You know, those sovereign citizens like to mention court cases. Okay, at trial too, during hearings, it's okay to mention court cases. You know, that's where the matter of law arguments are made during hearings. But at the trial, no, it's just coming down to observations and actions, and you talk about that, and then let the jury decide who's right and who's wrong based on their observations and the actions they took. You know, I guess, you know, the court wanted in Wisconsin, the court wanted to force my observations and actions out during testimony, and I wasn't willing to do it. I'm pleading the fifth. Okay, and I want to focus on the cops' observations and actions. I think that it's more important to be bringing out the cops, and I want to give the cop more time to talk about their observations and actions. Okay, I don't. I mean, as a defendant, I don't see that as I don't have the training. What's my training? It's like it's like the cop's the one that's approaching me and accusing me of wrongdoing. Well, I think it's best to you know, they have the burden of proof. I don't have to prove why I'm, you know, what why I'm um not in why I'm right. Why I want to prove why they're wrong. All right, poke holes in their accusations. So I'm learning, and the AI is helping, but still the AI is making mistakes. The AI is bringing up questions, court cases as part of the questions at trial, and that's a mistake. Okay, so the AI does not know, and it's because a lot of times I'm thinking that the training just isn't there. There isn't enough court documents for the AI to get familiar with. Or maybe some judges have actually allowed court case questions to be asked without objection. Uh, but I think we can refine. You know, with AI, we can refine. We can distill what exactly is the most appropriate way to ask questions at a trial. Observations and actions based on training. Um, that's for cops, as just and I guess for anybody really. Observations and actions for the defendant, if they choose to testify. If you want to testify as a defendant, then you can, you know, also do that. Talk about your training, I guess, as a defendant in some way, or whatever else. Character witnesses are kind of encouraged in these kangaroo courts. So you start out with their training of the whoever. Uh, I don't know. I'm just rambling on. I'm gonna stop this.